Hello, guys, and welcome to Inside the Playbook, presented by Hoosier Network. I'm Noah Seuss. I'm here with Campbell Manahan and Gabe Jenkins, and today we're going to take a look at this week's matchups in the college football playoffs and a little bit into the NFL playoffs that are starting up this weekend. So, guys, let's jump right into it. Miami, Ohio State, the first matchup of the quarterfinals. What a great game. We saw Miami. We didn't think Miami was going to do much in this game, but they came out, played really well on both sides of the ball. We were really judging Carson Beck in our last video, and he proved to us that he's a good quarterback in this game.
I, I mean, yeah, I think we all have to apologize to just the entire Miami Hurricanes team because I think we all predicted Ohio State to just go out there and dominate. But I think because of that, also we have to look back. I think don't all credit to Miami. They played a great game. But did we have this Ohio State Buckeyes team all wrong all year? Were they just not that good?
I think there's an argument to be made for that because Julian's saying the two games that he was pressured against IU and against Miami, he looked horrible.
Yeah.
It's just as soon as he had some pressure in his face, and that's the young quarterback in him, he just needs more time. And obviously, you're going to need more time when you're a college student and you're a quarterback. But Miami just looked terrific on both sides of the ball. It's the best game I've ever seen Carson Beck play, and I'm that's coming from one of the biggest Carson Beck dislikers out there. I just don't think he's going to be great in the NFL, but he played a terrific game, 19 for 26, 138 yards, one touchdown. He did everything that Miami needed him to do. And then of course Fletcher, the running back, he had a great game. It just seemed like everything they were doing on offense was working.
Yeah, I think what the story of this game truly was that like Miami's O line and D line just played significantly better than what Ohio State's offensive line and defensive line played. And that allowed them to get the early lead and just control the game the rest of the way. Like, sure, did Ohio State play better in the second half? And probably if there was three halves of this game, there was two more quarters. Maybe Ohio State comes back and finishes the game. But that's not the way it is. They got that early lead and they was able to hold on enough. And I think that offensive line giving Fletcher those holes, creating time for Carson Beck to make some plays. And that D line, man, did they get after it? I think was it 5 sacks they had on saying they went after him all day. He was relentless. That Miami defensive line is scary when playing against Miami.
Yeah, and they did let up 157 yards to Jeremiah Smith. But besides that, Ohio State's offense was invisible. They didn't really do much. And Sayan had that pick six, which made it 14-0 Miami. That was a crucial part of the entire game. It threw them off the whole game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that without that, it would be a very different story. I've seen a lot of Ohio State fans are just really mad at the missed field goal again, which I'm like, it mattered. Like, and they do have a problem where they do keep missing these field goals in big games, but it wasn't. You lost by 10. That's not the whole story.
Yeah,
That
it's
pick
not like
six
we
was
lost by
pretty
three.
bad. Also, like it felt like once again, like in this game, actually was Ryan Day calling the plays. It feels like they make mistakes in these big games. Whenever they have a team that's equal to them in talent, they tend to make major mistakes. And that call of that screen, Miami was all over it, jumped that screen pass immediately, and that's an easy pick six.
Yeah, and it's just so it's excuses. Every time Ohio State loses a game, it's excuses. But I feel like this game is just poor everywhere. Ryan Day calling the plays did not work out terrific. The first two quarters they held scoreless. Third and fourth quarter they won the second half 14 to 10, but when you give up 14 in the second quarter, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I also think there's something to say about Ohio State is not a team built to be playing when down, especially in that second half. They played with no urgency that entire second half. It felt like they were playing like they were the team in the lead to me, and it's just you can't do that. They had no sense of any urgency. They take 40 seconds every single play. Did they score 14 points? Yeah, but they limited the amount of possessions in that half, and that's not something you can do when you're the team down. You need to make there be more possessions in the game. You got to play quick. You got to maximize every single possession. And it just didn't feel like they did that. And I think the main thing to point out here is how did Ohio State's season really truly go? They started out the year playing a pretty good Texas team, scoring 14 total points in them. Then they played pretty much a bunch of nobodies the rest of the year. Got a good amount of points. I think they typically average at least 30 points per game on them, but it was against a lot of nobodies. And then the last two games of the year, they scored 10 points and 14 points. And this is an offense that has Jeremiah Smith, has Cardell Tate. I don't think there's any excuse for that.
I really think it's all on Ryan Day. He is not a great college coach. Just because they won the Natty last year, that's why he still has a job, in my opinion. He should be
Yeah,
out, I think, as Ohio State's coach if they don't win the Natty next year. That's what I'm
Mm,
saying.
I think he's given himself 5+ years for when it's hard to fire a guy who's won a national championship.
yeah, it's hard to fire a coach when they've gotten the highest level of of winning that you can have, but it's been not great on and oh, man, this past couple weeks for Ohio State, not great. When you get a bye, you have to absolutely be on top of it. You have to be prepared, and that's fully coaching. I believe that if you lose after a bye week, that's fully on the coach for not being able to prepare you.
Yeah. No, I mean they came out like and they were just cold at the start and they dug themselves into a hole they couldn't get out of. And I think you have to look at the coaching staff. There's endless talent on this roster. The amount of dudes that like are going to be probably not just drafted, but legitimately awesome, like Pro Bowl, all NFL, whatever talents that you have here. Jeremiah Smith, is there any doubt in anyone's mind that he's going to be awesome in the NFL? I don't think there is. And same with Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese. Like there's these players that's like, okay, yeah, that guy's for sure going to be awesome in the NFL. They have all this talent, and it's just this year, it's got to be a major disappointment.
You have two top five wide receivers in all of college football, and they couldn't score. That's
Yeah,
just
the other half of their offense, the rushing part is just not great. I think including sacks, the rushing average is 1.9 per attempt, but that is not where you need to be if you're going to try to play against a defense that is just so great on the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the large reason why they were able to get over that hump last year was because they had the wide receivers and the air raid offensive attack, but they also had Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, who are both doing very well in the NFL already as rookies and are great running backs. I'm not going to act like Bo Jackson isn't a good running back, but he's a freshman. He's young. He just isn't there yet. And it just doesn't feel like they were able to replenish the running back room this past year. And that has held them back in a lot of these games. And it's put the weight completely on Julian Sayin, who is like a 27-year-old freshman or whatever he is, but he is technically a freshman. Like this is his first year playing. And it feels like he makes those mistakes eventually.
Yeah, and the other thing that's a coaching issue is Ohio State on third down was 3 for 10.
ooh.
And you 3 for 10 is very, very bad, especially if you're trying to make the comeback that they had to make. They only went for fourth down once and they got it. But Miami on the other side was 7 for 14, and 50% is pretty good when you're playing the number two team in the nation.
Yeah, and I think that is credit to Carson Beck. It felt like the stat sheet isn't even necessarily like looking back at it the stats don't reflect how well he played in that game. Like 138 yards looking back at it, it's like, oh, that's not that much. But it felt like he probably had 200, 210, somewhere in that range. It every time they needed him to make a play, it felt like he made it. Peck continued picking up big third downs, would do it with his legs also. I feel like he had two like critical third downs on his legs that he picked up. And I think it just felt like Miami made the big plays when they needed to. They got out to that early lead and they just held on. And credit to them. That was a great performance. And Miami is now a Final Four contender. That's insane to think about.
Yeah, if you would have, we were talking about them just making the playoffs. Now they're in the semifinals. They play a team that I think they can honestly beat in Ole Miss, and their defense, Ole Miss's defense is a lot weaker than Ohio State's. So that's why I think Miami's gonna hold on and win that game.
Yeah.
So why don't we go to the Ole Miss Georgia game and talk about the shootout that happened over there? Ole Miss ends up coming out with the win there. Georgia is out. It's again the bye week collapse for these teams.
Yeah, we saw Trinidad Shanless in that fourth quarter. He played the best football I think I've seen a quarterback play this year. He really put the team on his back and led Ole Miss to this victory. And then that whole stage fiasco at the end, I don't know what was happening. They just said, I don't know what Georgia drew up on that last punt play, but just take a knee and just take a shot to the end zone, please. You don't need to throw the punt back and hit the pylon, and then they bring the stage out of a second left, and then they put it back on. So confusing. But Ole Miss ended up winning 39-34, so they did get the
Yeah.
safety.
I yeah, yeah. I mean, that safety didn't really end up mattering. That was the longest 1 second of football I think I've ever watched. But just an insane performance from Trinidad Chambliss. He was out of his mind that day. I think it was 15 passes he had completed in a row.
Yes.
And there was that one 3 play stretch in the fourth quarter where they were down and he scrambles to get out of a sack, makes a crazy like play. They pick up the first down. They get like it was only like for 5 yards, but it was a wild like how did he get out of the sack, make a play? And then the next play, he gets pressured immediately again, scrambles out, does another thing, and then gets another 10 yards on an insane play. And then the next play, scrambles out of a sack again and bombs it like 50 yards down the field. And it was a perfect on the money throw also. He was just out of his mind that day. And I mean, they deserved the win. He deserved the MVP and the win. He was awesome. And it's really good news for Ole Miss Rebels. I don't know if you've seen the reports. It seems like he's going to be staying at
Yes.
Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And
Dang it,
this
Oxford.
team feels like they are sticking it to Lane Kiffin right now. And it really does bring up the argument of did Lane Kiffin leave and a team he definitely shouldn't have? Because it feels like next year they're going to be pretty good and be able to be contending for a national title again. And just especially if you have this guy who I think probably might have made himself the Heisman favorite next year. I think there's a very good argument there.
I don't know if we're there yet, but you're talking about the eye test. We can look at the stats and they say the exact same thing. Trinidad Chambliss was 30 for 46 with 2 touchdowns and 362 passing yards. Not even talking about his rushing ability that he has. That is absolutely insane. Now, of course, 39 points, you're going to have a lot of yards, but 30 for 46 is crazy good completion percentage.
And like I said, I think there was a stretch where I think it was like 15 for 15 he had in the second half at one point. Like
Yeah,
he had an insane out of body experience there.
in the college football playoffs.
Yeah. And Georgia is no slump. And the reason Georgia's been so good recently is that their defensive line has finally been back to what the Georgia defensive lines of old have been in getting after the quarterback. They got after Trinidad Chambliss. They didn't get a single sack on him.
Yeah. When you can get that much pressure and it's not like they lost to the offensive line. They lost to Trinidad Chambliss. He just kept getting out of their arms and it was crazy to watch.
I
And
feel
I think it sets up something really intriguing against Miami's defensive line.
I feel like some of the blame has to be put on Georgia's corners. They allowed 156 yards to Harrison Wallace, and then Striblin had 122. The secondary played a terrible game, and this Georgia defense we talked about before as being one of the best defenses in the entire country, and they allowed 39 points to Ole Miss. I'm not no discredit to Ole Miss's offense. They played a great game, but I expected a lot more coming out of Georgia's defense.
Yeah. Well, and what I thought was the tell of this game was that the last time they faced the original matchup in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss got one passing yard and got absolutely shut down, and Georgia went at 17-0 in the fourth quarter. Completely opposite story in this fourth quarter's. Ole Miss scored 20 total points. Granted, two of those were garbage safety points, but So 18 points still is a lot in the fourth quarter. Just complete domination from Ole Miss's offense. They were unstoppable at the end there. It felt like at the end when Georgia got that touchdown, you were like, oh no, you left them like 55 seconds. That's just game because you can't leave any time for this kid. He's going to kill you. And that's what happened. That final play to gain the field goal range, they sent the blitz. It reminded me of, I don't know if you remember this play, but Stafford to Cooper Kupp against the Buccaneers in the playoffs
Yes.
when they sent a blitz at him and he just bombs it over the top of them. It felt like that. Like he just knew exactly where to go. Right when he had the man-to-man coverage, he was like, my receiver's going to win that matchup. I'm just going to throw it up to him, and he's going to get like 50 yards and just right into field goal range.
Yeah, it was a
It,
dominating performance from Ole Miss's offense. Kawan Lacey played a great game, 98 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. They just dominated this Georgia defense, in my opinion.
it didn't, oh man, that was just one of the best shows of offense you could watch and one of the worst showings of defense you could watch. Over 30 points for both teams. It's a lot to give up, but it is still one of the most entertaining games you can watch. It builds confidence for the next years with this young Ole Miss core, and it could be a sign of what's to come for the rest of this tournament or what's a sign to come for next year.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not act like Georgia didn't play a really great game offensively. Also, I felt like their offense, they scored 34 points. They did pretty great. But at the end of the day, there's something about Gunnar Stockton. I don't know what it is. He's good, but it feels like every single play, he like scrambles out of the pocket and makes it like a really tough play. And sometimes they're great plays, but it's like he's always counting on like a wild, busted play to happen. I think they had a really good spread out like receiving game. Like not nobody was true like number one other than I mean Branch had a lot of total catches, but he didn't have the yardage total. It was a good game from their offense, but I feel like you expect more out of Gunnar Stockton against a Ole Miss defense that is a little bit depleted.
I was interested in looking up what the over-under was for this game, like point-wise. 55 and a half. And they scored 73 points. So whoever made that line absolutely tanked it in Vegas. That is just an awful line for two offenses that didn't seem to be stopped in this one.
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
let's
so
talk about two games that weren't quite that great. Let's first talk about Texas Tech versus Oregon. Just an absolute shutdown, 23-0 Oregon. This Texas Tech got nothing going on offense all game.
So
and
how,
something to me that was interesting about this game is that I feel like it should have been 50-0 in Oregon's favor because they had so many scoring opportunities. They just could not convert. And that's a testament to Texas Tech's defense. Now, we look at 23 and we see, no, the defense gave up a lot. But also, the offense kind of didn't convert many first downs, a lot of short yardage. It just it wasn't a favorable matchup for them. Texas Tech offense could not break through Oregon's defense at all. It just didn't work out.
how
Yeah,
good do we think JMU's offense was to score, what, 34 points on Oregon last week?
it
Texas Tech
looks really
scored
good now.
nothing. Shout out to Dante Moore. He played a phenomenal game. 26 to 33 passing, 234 yards. Besides that interception, it was all ducks for him, for Dante Moore. Baron Morton played probably the worst game I've ever seen in quarterback play. Like you said, he kept things very short. 2 interceptions and 137 yards is not going to win you any football game on this world. It was just all ducks in this one.
Yeah, the way they beat them makes me like look back at Texas Tech schedule and just is the Big 12 just terrible this year? Like were they actually just terrible cuz none of those teams the reason Texas Tech won those games must have just been only that their defense just kept bailing out the offense and eventually the offense scored enough. Baron Morton didn't look like he belonged playing college football for anyone, not even just Texas Tech, like anyone. Like he didn't look like he could play for, I don't know, Kennesaw State or somebody like that. He looked terrible. 18 for 32, 137 yards, 2 interceptions, and a fumble also. He was awful. The Texas Tech run game was not good. They had it looks better because they have one 50-yard run where I don't know if you guys remember this. The 50-yard run, Oregon completely defended it the right way and just he broke like three tackles and then took off for 50 yards. It was not like it was defended poorly, it was just tackled poorly. And he broke it for 50 yards. That was like the only play Texas Tech had all game, and they still didn't even score on that drive. So it didn't even matter.
Yeah, it hurts when you get an explosive play for 50 yards and you still can't put up points. It's not a great look, and Texas Tech had four turnovers. It's six penalties. It's not a great game for them at all. They third down, 6 for 16. It's not they're not in a great spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of this is on Baron Morton. I think a lot of it is on the coaching, and a lot of it's on having probably the worst offense in the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
When you put up that performance and you put up what 215 total yards, and Oregon put up just 245 passing yards, you're not going to even come close to beating a team with the caliber of Oregon. Oregon's just a great team all around.
Yeah. I mean, it sets up a great matchup against IU for Oregon. And just overall, Oregon's defense was dominant. Like, Texas Tech has been a functional offense most of the year, and Oregon just made it look like they were a peewee football team. It was embarrassing for Texas Tech. I think it's why I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the recruiting. They just paid like $5 million in IL for Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati, so they think he's going to be their quarterback savior. And because I mean, their defense, I'll give full credit to. I think their defense deserves to be in the playoffs. That defense is legit awesome. Oregon has a really good running attack. Couldn't get anything on the ground going. It was all Dante Moore for their offense, and that Texas Tech defense is impressive, but they got to figure out offense there.
Yeah. And I think we could just kind of transition over to Alabama and Indiana, another game where it was 38-3. Not a lot of offense coming from Alabama that was projected to be neck and neck with Indiana.
We really saw, like I said this last week, we really saw IU win this game in the trenches. We saw Roman Hemby and Kalen Black absolutely carry this game. IU's O-line was absolutely fantastic. Besides the first drive, when Alabama had two sacks on Fernando Mendoza, they really didn't have much pressure the rest of the way. So it was just IU winning the game in the trenches and Alabama not being able to run the football.
Yeah. I mean, all day it was just trench dominance from this Indiana football team. And that's the real difference from this team to last year's IU team, where it's like last year's IU team still had a really good quarterback in Curtis Rourke, still had great receivers, had a great secondary, but their D line and offensive line just couldn't get it done in the big games. This year, it's the complete opposite. Every single matchup IU has ever had, I don't think they've had a single matchup where their offensive line and defensive line weren't better than their opponents. And it's been like that all year, and they've just been able to dominate at the lines. And I mean, it really showed later in the game when they once they got the lead, they're like, all right, we're just gonna let the ground game get 5 yards every single time. And they don't do any fancy stuff. It's not like they're like going out to the sideline doing all these pitches and stuff. They're just going right at them up the middle every single time, and they're just picking up 5 yards every time. And it's just, and then Fernando Mendoza, once they need him to pass, is like pretty much perfect. He was 14 for 16, 192, three touchdowns, had more touchdowns than incompletions, which is
Once
just
again,
insane. He's wildly efficient. Just every single time you watch the IU Hoosiers, it's like, yeah, they're clearly just the best coach team in college football. They do nothing wrong. Everything, there's no flaws. Every single unit is great. And you're just going to have to beat them by, like, in order to beat IU, you're just going to have to be really good. Like, because they're not going to mess up at anything.
yeah, it's you're talking about Curtis Rourke being a good quarterback and him being the facilitator for last year. Fernando Mendoza is the Heisman for IU for a reason. Again, this is his I don't even know how many games where he's had more touchdowns than incompletions, but it's been a few. And he's just absolutely terrific at distributing the ball. Charlie Becker had a touchdown. Omar Cooper had a touchdown. Elijah Surratt had a touchdown. It didn't matter that if you locked one of them up, the other two would get open. It was absolute domination from Indiana. I mean, after that first quarter, it was 0-0, but after that, 17 points in the second quarter, another touchdown in the third, and then 14 in the fourth. They just kept on winning the one-on-ones.
Yeah, and I saw IU's defense got a lot of pressure on Ty Simpson, but they never got the sack. But then the secondary was so huge because no one was ever open.
Yeah.
So we saw
I
Ty Simpson get a lot of pressure, but he couldn't complete anything.
yeah, I mean Ty Simpson was bad. I think if he had been playing a good, well playing game, I think he would have for sure stayed in the game and played through that cracked rib. I think part of it was that they were like, "Well, you haven't been playing well and you're hurt, so we're going to bench you and see if Matt can cause any spark." Which I think he did maybe for like 2 plays, and then IU was like, "Never mind, you're getting stopped." It just was domination from IU. And it's every single game. It's all of them, like every single unit that IU has, whether it's special teams, whether it's the defensive line, the secondary, the linebackers, the wide receivers, the running backs, tight end, offensive line, quarterback, every single unit is just perfect almost always. Like it's flawless. And every single ball Fernando Mendoza throws has the most tight, perfect spiral you'll ever watch. Do you ever see him throw a wobbler? No, never once has he thrown a wobbler. Not even in warmups. I think he was on McAfee recently, and they were like, "Yeah, I was watching you warm up, and not a single throw you ever throw is not perfect, and it's just wild." And I think we can put this one to bed, but it was just domination from IU.
Well, the other thing we should talk about first is Indiana rushing had Kalen Black with 99 yards, Roman Hemby with 89 yards, and each of them having a touchdown. And Alabama had 23 total rushing yards. So yeah, absolute domination. But now we can switch over to the pro level playoffs. They are starting up this weekend, and there is a full slate of games that could be really close or blowouts.
Yeah, I mean, first game here is Texans at Gabe's Steelers. I think this is a very interesting matchup with the fact the Steelers are are getting Metcalf back. I do believe, and
Yes.
that makes matchup a little interesting. The Steelers lucked their way into the playoffs. Let's not act like a missed field goal happened to make them in the playoffs. Now, granted, they also missed the extra point. Wild ending to that game, but they got into the playoffs barely. I think they're kind of dangerous though because this is going to be like this game's going to be low scoring slugfest with the Steelers and Texans defenses. This is going to be just like an absolute mess of a game. I would be leaning more Texans though in like a 17-9, something ugly.
Yeah, this game, so the Steelers getting Metcalf back is absolutely huge for them because these last 2 weeks of offense have been so ugly. It is the worst offense I've ever watched without Metcalf.
The amount of
It's,
times they throw it to Valdez Scantling is wild.
Too much,
yeah,
too much for a third string wide receiver.
They really need him, and he's not very good.
it's bad. It's Thielen, it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and it's Jonnu Smith because now Darnell Washington broke his arm.
Yeah.
So it's a bad look. The Steelers just have to they have to get their target back, which they are getting their target back. Getting Metcalf back, it helps the offense so much because he's such a threat. And hopefully the Steelers can do something to make it look good, but I'm thinking Texans all the way for this game.
Yeah, I think the Tex both two great defenses in this one. I think the Texans' offense is a lot better than the Steelers' offense. I
Yeah.
think CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Will Marks is just gonna dominate the Steelers' defense.
Yeah.
It's low scoring because both these defenses are great. It's kind of cold in Pittsburgh, so the run game is gonna be ineffective in my opinion. So I'm gonna say a score of 20-10 in the Texans' favor doesn't hurt.
Okay. And now let's move on. The next game, it's Bills at Jags. It's a very interesting matchup with the fact that the Bills are the road team in this matchup. I think this kind of has all the looks of a potential shootout here, fellas. I mean, the Jaguars' offense, like first half of the year, I thought the Jaguars were like fraudulent and kind of sucked. And then second half of the year, they like fully clicked, and all of a sudden, Liam Cohen has this team rolling. Trevor Lawrence looks like a top five quarterback, and this team is clicking right now. But you're facing Josh Allen in the playoffs. I'm going to trust the Bills to win a high score on like 38-34 Bills because of Josh Allen putting on an MVP like performance.
And
Yeah, it's been said if Josh Allen doesn't win it this year with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson out of the playoffs, he can never win one because this is his window to win one without the steepest competition to get to the Super Bowl. And to me, I think it's hard for me to bet against the Bills, but it's also hard for me to bet against the Jaguars because they have looked really good recently and they've earned themselves the three spot. I mean, it's a tough game to pick, but for me, I'm gonna go with Bills.
I think this Jacksonville team has looked the best compa out of every AFC team ahead of them. I think they're better than the Patriots. I think they're better than the Broncos compared to their to their wins and how close they played against bad teams. I think Jacksonville's offense is going to be way too much for this Bills defense. I have the Jags winning this one at home and advancing to the AFC divisional round.
All right. And let's move on. The last game of the AFC, Chargers at the Patriots. I mean, the storyline here, I think, is definitely Drake May has, he has played like an MVP quarterback. It's him or Stafford. It's just between those two. It's pretty much a coin flip. Also, they're dead even. But Drake May has been a top two quarterback this whole year, and I think the real reason here that you're looking at a Patriots victory is Justin Herbert has been terrible in every playoff game he's ever played in. He has been horrendous. He is a good quarterback for most of the year, and then playoff times come, and he can't do anything. I also think the Patriots are going to be able to run the ball with Henderson and Stevenson. I think that the Chargers, for them to win, like they need a Jesse Minter masterclass from that defense, and they need it to be crazy low scoring. I think Patriots with that home crowd behind them, Drake May will make the right plays. I think it's 27-13 Patriots, pretty comfortable victory.
All right, so let's move on to Panthers Rams. Seuss, give me your take on Panthers Rams.
Um, so we saw the Panthers this weekend barely squeak into the playoffs. They would like to send a welcome basket to the Falcons. Thank you for your service. But I have the Rams winning this one. I think their offense is way too much for the Panthers defense. We did see the Panthers win that regular season matchup this year, but I have the Rams winning this one. I'm going to say pretty comfortably, 35-17.
Yeah. The one thing I will point on this game is the Rams do like to tend to make these games a little closer than they need to. And it feels like the Panthers make these games closer than they should be. So that is an interesting collision there.
All right, Campbell, take us to Eagles 49ers.
I think this is a very interesting game because I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles fans like their team. I think I've heard a lot where it's like the Eagles fans just don't like this team right now. I think that the Niners just got thoroughly embarrassed, however, by the Seahawks, where that Niners offense was rolling and then only got 3 points against the Seahawks in prime time. I think it's a great matchup. I think that Shanahan's going to have a really good game plan to be able to create a few plays. I think it's a really low scoring game, though. I don't think that Eagles offense is anything to like look at and think that's really good. And the Niners offense is pretty good, but I think that Eagles defense, however, is really, really dominant. I see Niners pulling off the upset 17-12, something ugly where Christian McCaffrey is the X factor throughout the game.
I also think Saquon Barkley is turning his game on at the right time. He was kind of cold for most of the year, but he's starting to really heat up. But I will take us over to Bears Packers. Bears get the home field advantage. They're the number two seed. It's a, I mean, this is going to be a great game. The Bears won at home earlier the year with Jordan Love playing part of the game and then Malik Willis coming in. However, I still believe that it's going to be the Bears win here because Malik Willis making that game close is because that it was such a different ball game. But Bears going to win it maybe like 31 to 28. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the Bears' skill to win in these really tight games that they keep pulling out like the final ending victory.
And that's all from Inside the Playbook. Tune in with us next time, and we will see who wins.